Got A. Welcome to the Elders Words of Encouragement Power Hour, celebrating our Native Youth, Our Medicine campaign and Native Wellness Institute's 178th Power Hour. Today, we're going to hear from our 4 panelists all around the topic of empowering Native youth with words of encouragement and love. Yat hello, my name is Kendra Becenti. I'm a Diné woman from New Mexico. I'm pursuing a dual Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology and Native American Studies at Stanford University, but I'm taking some time off currently and interning with the Center for Native American Youth as the Gen I and Special Projects intern. I'm a sister, daughter, and granddaughter, so I'm feeling so blessed to be able to be in conversation and community with our panelists today. I'm super excited to get started, but before we do, I wanted to give a quick plug for our Celebrating Self-Love call for submissions. So we're having this conversation today. Maybe it can spark some ideas in your own life about how you practice self-love, how you care for yourself, and share those ideas, share those thoughts with us. We want to know how really all Native people out there care for themselves and their well-being and how they show themselves love. So we decided to open up this call for submissions to everyone in our community, from tiny tots to our elders out there, everyone in between. We want to know what self-love means to you. So you can find more information and submit to that call for submissions at wearenative.org. So I think we're ready to get started. We have some incredible panelists here that I will have them introduce themselves. So if you'd like to give your name, tribal affiliations, where you're calling in from, where home is for you, and any other information that you would like to share with us. And I also wanted to do one more thing, is what is one thing you love about yourself and why? This is something that we started at CNAY. We are having conversations about, what we love about ourselves, and really trying to normalize that in the workplace and also across Indian countries. So if you could share after you give your introduction, what is one thing you love about yourself and why? So first, I will kick it over to Verlene to start us off.
To me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Verlene Natsumabawikiti. I'm a member of the Hickory Apache Nation in Dulce, New Mexico. I work for the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community in Scottsdale, and I make my home in Gilbert, Arizona. One thing that I like about myself is that I feel that I can motivate people. I enjoy my job and working with teenagers here, being a teacher to them, and they motivate me to try to be a better person for myself. I try to see myself as when I was their age, and the things that the people who inspired me the most to becoming who I am today. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, and I think as a Native woman, I have a very important role to serve to our young people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Verlene. Next, Dr. Kipp.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Billy Kipp, and I am in Seattle. I'm an enrolled member of the Blackfeet tribe. I make my home in Seattle, but I work for the Aspen Institute as the Associate Director for Research and Evaluation. My career has been a child psychologist and addiction specialist, and I've worked on 5 different reservations in my clinical work, and I've been published and authored articles on Native American mental health. Thank you for having this. And I would like to say one thing I like about myself, and it's just so needed today, is I really have faith and spirituality that transcends difficulties. And in this time, that's incredibly important for me to have that as a support as we move through COVID. And that's one thing that my ancestors gave to me, my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother. I knew they were people of faith because they taught me how to be steadfast, that things will be better.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. Next, I will go to Robbie.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Robbie Bill. I'm from the Umatilla Reservation. I've been working with youth probably since the mid-90s. Lived in Portland for about 6 years, went to Portland State, finished up there, and moved back home. I live in Tutawilla Flats. It's south of the reservation. Got brothers and a sister, and I'm just been married almost 30 years next year, so I'm pretty proud of that. I get accused of always smiling and kind of making corny jokes. I think that's what I like about me is I can, even when I work with the youth and native stand, they're always calling me dad jokes and, telling me that, your jokes aren't funny, but they're still laughing as they're telling me they're not funny. So I think I like that. I like to pick people up and just put a smile on their face. And I got 4 kids. My wife's kind of my better half, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, dad jokes are always needed. Thank you. Next, I will go to John Spence.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for the invitation, Jolene, and Native Wellness. So my name is John Spence. I'm Gros Ventre Sioux from Fort Belknap, Montana. Well, nowadays we say Ananin or Ani for Gros Ventre. And the Sioux part, that's my grandpa's Lakota, Hagpab Lakota from Standing Rock. So, but I grew up in Fort Belknap with my grandmother and my relatives there. So I'm 79. I've survived, I guess, I know one of the reservations, back in Dakota is the life expectancy for an Indian male was like 48 years, a year or two ago. And another one out here in Oregon a few years ago, it was like 47. So it's 79 and an Indian male. I feel pretty thankful today for my health and living this long. The number one thing I'll say about being pleased of my life, I guess, is that I'm sober. I've been sober for 37 years. 38 now, September. So I quit drinking at Fort Belknap at home. I was working for my tribe. I worked during the 1980s. I worked for 7 years at Fort Belknap. And since this is related to youth, I'll just talk about that a little bit because I was first director of our group home there. And I had 3 tribal foster kids there while there. They're all doing good today. They're all alive, doing well. And let's see, well, I taught a parenting class at Fort Belknap for a while. And I was on tribal council, and then I was tribal college president for a couple years. So out here in Oregon, I been out here for a number of years, worked at Shemau Indian School. So again, the kid part, working with kids for 7 years at Shemau Indian School, which I never thought I'd be at a boarding school. But, things were different, and my mother and my biological father went to school there. In fact, I didn't know that either one of my parents had gone to Chemawa. Because my mother passed away when I was 3, and I never did meet my biological father. So here I wound up at Chemawa, and they'd gone to school there. Anyway, my grandpa, and dad, my son and daughter live out here in Beaverton, Oregon, which is close to Portland. And that's why I'm here now. After my wife passed 6 years ago, I moved out here to be closer to the kids. So in the last 20 years, I've been working mostly with the 9 Oregon tribes here, prevention and treatment mostly. So substance abuse is the main thing that I like working with. And then Well, the last 11 years, it's mostly been using horses. So using horse therapy with tribal kids and veterans. And that's how I know Robbie. I know Robbie went to North Dakota, and I know John Eagle got him going there pretty good. So good to see you all. Thanks for me being a part of this. Thanks.
Thank you so much for those introductions, everyone. And also thank you for sharing, what you love about yourself. For all of our sort of viewers at home, I encourage you all maybe tonight at dinner to get with your families and, have that conversation, talk about what you love about yourself. Let's really normalize these conversations within our communities, within our families, really uplifting ourselves and one another in that way. So today we sort of wanted to focus this space in on words of encouragement and wisdom coming from our elders, especially as we're all experiencing this pandemic, the stressors associated and everything like that. But, even also beyond that, the challenges that we face in our day-to-day lives within our families and, even within ourselves. Especially during these times, we often turn to our elders, our aunties, our grandparents, our chays, our masanis out there to really help us heal and grow and even just ground ourselves. Whenever I talk to my grandparents, it's just so, often makes me emotional just how much wisdom and how much love that they can give. So to start us out, I'm going to be asking this question to all of our panelists here today. And we will start off with Verlene again. But can you share with us a traditional teaching or lesson about caring for ourselves that was gifted to you either when you were young or that you learned throughout your life? So Verlene, yeah, we'll start off with you.
Okay. For me, I guess I have to say that was taught to me by my father, my late dad. He always taught us to love and respect everybody that we come in contact with all the time, and to always remember that we were all God's children. And I seen that kindness and love that he showed to everyone who came to our home when we were younger, and regardless if these people were what condition they were in. He always opened our home and to these people. He always offered them a place to sleep, some food to eat. If they needed money, he would give it to them, never asking for anything in return. And right now, I try to follow that by showing that same kindness and love to everybody that I come in contact with each day. And I try to do that with my children, and it's really nice to see that when I can see my children doing the same thing, knowing that we don't have to get anything back. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And I think if more people would do that, I can just think of how more wonderful this world could be, especially now with this pandemic going on, and all the craziness of the election and everything that's going on. We just need to show more of that to everybody. And and he always told us too, don't ever go to bed mad, because if you do, you're going to wake up grumpy, he said. And so that's one thing. You just try to leave whatever happens that day, leave it for that day, and then praying for those individuals who might have made your day difficult and hard. So I'm a strong believer in prayer, that it helps us get through those hard and difficult times that we face each day.
Thank you, Verlene. That was so powerful. Thank you. Next, I will go to Dr. Kipp.
Thank you, Verlene. That was wonderful. As I reflected on this question, I realized that a lot of the teachings came from watching. And as children in Indian communities, that's how we learn, we watch. And so I learned to watch my mother, who was a very faithful person. My grandmother was faithful. And I used to watch my mom deal with adversity through being inward and really reflecting and really praying hard. And I come from an alcoholic home. I'm a person in recovery for 36 years, I think. And I just learned that through that, there was the power and the stamina to overcome a lot of adversities. And my mother never graduated from high school, but yet she taught me the importance of education. So I have a PhD now. And then I watched my father. My father served on our tribal council until the day he died for, I think it was 30, 40 some years. And his devotion to our people was critical. And so I learned from that, from watching him get up at 2 a.m. to give people money to go see their relatives in Great Falls. He was always there for the people. And I learned that whatever I did for myself, it had to be for the people. And that was a teaching of watching my parents be who they were in the Blackfeet tribe. And so those teachings were critical. And one most important teaching is I watched my grandfather. He lived with us until he died at the age of 96. In fact, I think he lived with us longer than my dad lived with us, because my dad died quite young. And I would watch him go about his day's work. And when he was coming to the end of his cycle, I sat there and I watched him in his chair in our home, and he was speaking fluent Blackfeet. And mid-sentence he stopped and he said, "Oh, I'm not supposed to talk like that." So from that I learned the trauma connected to being denied access to your language, to being denied access to who we were as Indian people. It was just a stark lesson for me to know that my grandpa, that I didn't know spoke fluent Blackfeet, did at the end of the time, and he still carried with him that trauma. And so those things I bring forth in my practice as a psychologist, and my practice as a mentor to young Native youth. And those are the things that we hold steadfast, that carry us through life, that carry us through hardships, because our ancestors have gone through the most unspeakable hardships in their lives. And so I know right now my tribe is going through a lot of COVID and several deaths. And I know that watching the ancestors, watching my grandparents, watching my parents, that they will get through this, because collectively we are strong. And so I give grace to that. I give honor to that. And I'm just really thankful, Kendra, for that question. That's a very, very good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. Now I will go over to Robbie.
Hi. Good job, you guys. I don't know how I'm gonna follow that, but I guess my biggest teacher was my mother, and she's been gone 21 years now, but I always remember her waking me up and dragging me to the longhouse, and the prayers and the songs that she would do. And she'd always tell me that, you know, if a song comes to you, you better sing it, because somebody probably needs it right now. I remember just her just being respectful and really good to people. And I think one of the things that she would talk to me about is how she would kind of flip her lid sometimes, and she wishes that she could have handled things better at times. And so I try to work on that myself, just to let her know that I'm still working to be peaceful, to be somebody that's giving, and to be somebody that just wants to laugh like she used to. I can still hear her laugh in my head, and I can hear her humor. You know, one time when I was at Portland State, we went and visited some elders at an elder community, and there was like 3 of them in there, and this elder asked me where I'm from, and I said I'm from the Umatilla Reservation. And she says, "Oh, you're from that people that always likes to laugh. You guys are always laughing at everything." And I always remember that, and I was proud when she told me that. And even like before I got on this call, there was guys outside my office running the jackhammer. so I went out and talked to them, and I said, hey, are you guys going to be jackhammering at noon? Because I got to get on this call. And they said, no, we're going to lunch. We're good. We're done jackhammering. And I knew both of them. And right away, they both came over and shook my hand and showed respect to me, because I just lost a little brother last month. He's 50. And then they had to throw some humor in there, you know, about a memory and how you holding up. And I said, you know, I was feeling sorry for myself for about 6 or 7 days in a row. Didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to be around anybody. But then I started to remember my brother's laughter, and I started to remember my mom, and my mom's birthday was on the 26th, and seeing them together in my mind up in wherever they're at. I take more laughter now. And I think that's probably something my mom taught me, was that that's our biggest healer. I don't think people realize that in Indian country, how much we laugh and how much we tease each other, and it's not in being mean. It's just we lift each other up. And I think that's what I love about the youth, is like they give me more than I could ever give them. And I go away thinking, wow, who helped who here? And so when I think about my mom and her teachings to me, it's just always be a giver, always, you know, teaching me how to give to community. You know, I remember people would stop her in the store and say, hey, your son is this, this, and this. And she says, well, you're helping raise him, so, you know, take some credit for that. I love sharing my kids with my community. And I think I try to teach that at Native Stand to the kids, that, you know, step outside of yourself, take a compliment. You know, it's easiest when somebody puts us down, we take it in really fast. But you know what? When somebody says something nice to you, just take it and run with it, you know? So anyways, I don't want to talk all day, so.
Thank you for that, Robbie. Yes, laughter is medicine. As natives, we're quite good at laughing. It's one of our strengths, definitely. John Spence, I'll go over to you next.
Thank you. I see that my sister Avis is joining us, I hope. Avis Archambault. Anyway, when you folks were talking, I immediately thought of Grandma. My grandmother, Molly Cochran Archambault, raised my two sisters and I. Like I said, my mother died when I was 3. I don't remember her a whole lot, and I didn't, you know, have a father. So I had an uncle and a grandmother that raised us. And when the first lady started talking, I, again, immediately thought of her. And the other thing immediately came to my mind, when folks around the country, Theta Newbreast, and I think John Bird was there, my sister Avis Archambault, and I forget who all, when they were putting the Gona curriculum together back in the early 90s, gathering of Native Americans, that curriculum, you know, that Jolene's folks are taking around all over the place and have been. You know, you recall I talk about the 4 stages of life, and for an elder, you know, they say that the main characteristic is generosity. Well, that's it. When I saw that Gona curriculum the first time, it's like, that is just right. Because my grandmother and all of her contemporaries, that was where they were. Generous with whatever they had, and generous, you know, of their spirit. I always, you know, think of that first. And when we were growing up, either in Harlem or out at Hayes with our other relatives out there, particularly the Cochrans, and then us, Brian Cochran and Frank Cochran, it was wall-to-wall Indians all the time. It's like, you know, whoever came, you know, no matter, was no telephones then. And people show up and visit, and you're gonna eat. You gotta feed people. And in the winter, people are gonna sleep over. You're gonna be covering people up. That was my grandmother, feeding everybody, and you know, making sure they were warm for the night. Those are the things that just carried with me. And then when I started working with the kids, like at our Fort Belknap, a Wild Horse Youth Ranch, you know, once I got the job, I thought, now what? And so I really just thought about, well, how Grandma treated everybody, and my uncle, my relatives, my uncles who took, you know, were father figures. They were just good to us. That was it. They were good to us. So I took the idea that I'm just going to be Uncle John to these kids. And sure enough, that's how I worked with those kids, how I worked with the kids for again, 7 years at Chemawa, and how I'm working with the kids here in the 9 tribes. And of course, so nowadays, though, I'm using horses. So I'm, the horses are the teachers. I'm just a guide, and the kids respond. They respond to the kindness of horses, the respect. They give respect to the horses. The horse gives that back, or maybe it's the first thing. Maybe the horses give it first. But it's a beautiful way of working. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do any talking. I just want to work with horses and kids now. I'm a social worker. I go way back. Avis can tell you, when we were kids, we used to hide from the caseworkers, and we were on welfare as kids. And we heard that the caseworkers would take you away, and they did in those days before the Indian Child Welfare Act. So I wound up being a social worker. But I don't want to do talking anymore with kids. I just use the horses. But I'm glad to be a part of it. And again, the teachings are from way back. My grandmother and uncles. That's where it's from. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I see Avis. Can you hear us? Hi, Avis. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess I'll kick it over to you. Just really quick, a name, tribal affiliations, where calling in from, where home is for you. And if you could also share one thing that you love about yourself. And then we can go into additional questions after that. So thank you for joining us. I'll kick it over to you, Avis. I think you're on mute. I don't think we can hear you. Oh no. We still can't hear you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't think your audio is coming through. Maybe on the back end, Jolene, if you're able to assist, that would be super helpful. Okay, so I think as we sort of get that figured out, maybe unplugging your headphones, that might work. Cool. So I guess while we're getting that figured out, Avis, I can totally come back to you. But let's start off with, yeah, I'm sorry, we still can't hear you. But I will start off with Dr. Kipp, and then we can come back to you, Avis. Let's see. So Dr. Kipp, in thinking about some of the work that you do, or even your role as an NT to, a lot of our youth in the CNAY network and beyond, can you talk to us a little bit about what it means to empower ourselves and begin the journey and healing from historical traumas, intergenerational traumas that show up in our lives?
I think that's really a good question, because I don't think it's an issue of empowering us. I think it's an issue of healing, and then be willing to travel down that path to heal. I think it's really important when we look at events in our life that have been difficult or abusive or negative, we look at what we've learned from them, and we wrap and include that as a piece of ourselves. I don't look at my addiction to substances and alcohol as a negative. I look at it as a gift for me to embrace who I am, and that maybe there's something here that I'm going through today that I can learn and teach somebody else or pass on to somebody else by overcoming it. And so those obstacles are actually gifts. And every day in my prayers to Creator, I thank Him for the gifts He's given, but also for the trials and tribulations, because we learn from them. We really learn from them. And I watched my mom bury several people in her lifetime. And I watched her go through each burial with dignity and the ability to address what needed to be taken care of in the ceremony of the funeral. And I learned that real well. So I learned how to handle trauma. I learned how to address trauma, and that really sustained me as a clinical psychologist. But I think that Kendra, that it's not empowering, but I think it's accepting who we are as Native people, as Native children, and accepting the history that we've come through. So when I go to say, oh, I don't have this kind of house, or I don't have this, I remember that our ancestors fought for land just to live. And so if we keep that connection, it really moves us, and maybe it empowers us to move forward. But we learn from that strength that we've watched, that we know historically, that there was something in who we are as Native people that set us apart. There is something that happened in our history, in our families, in our individual lives that sets us apart, not for negative, but to help and to learn and show others how to go. And through that, I look at the youth. I look at you, Kendra, and I look at all the youth I've worked with in the past. And I've worked with some pretty sad kiddos as a clinician. And I think of their spirit. What happened? What was in this little Indian child that kept her going under the most horrible circumstances? And it's who we are as Indian people. It's our faith, it's our spirituality, it's our history, it's our personal trials and tribulations, and the things that we've overcome. So that's what I think about. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much, Dr. Kipp. Avis, are you able to hear us? / can we hear you? Yeah, the audio is still not coming through. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I wish I had more answers. We could also try a different way. Yeah, it's still not coming in. I'm so sorry about that. We could also try calling in. That might work a little bit better. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. But I guess we can keep moving through this, and then Avis, I would love to come back to you and just check in to see how things are going. So this question is for Dr. John Spence. So from your knowledge and experience, what does it mean to decolonize and indigenize mental health? How can we sort of normalize these practices in our day-to-day lives?
Oh God, I tell you what, I have a PhD too, but I hate those words, decolonize. Oh God, decolonization, it's too long. I mean, God, I know it's the fashion with younger folks these days, but I mean, I even had trouble, early 70s, Native American, hell, we're Indians, I was good. There's too many syllables there, but I know it'll catch on because The young people are doing it. I don't use the words myself. I mean, hell, I'm fine with racism and systemic, generational oppression. I'm fine with those words. But the thing is, with kids, I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of optimism. Because hell, I've worked with kids for, God, what is it, 60 years or something. Since 1964, I started as a caseworker. I've been doing social work stuff the whole time. And I just have total faith in our young people. It's the old people, we've got to get it together. And so, walk your talk. I had to quit drinking, 38 years now. And when I moved home to work as tribal health planner, I had to get honest. I quit drinking then. And so I should have started off with thanking my friends and relatives at home. That's where I started. My first 5 years of sobriety at Fort Belknap. And I still go to some Indian meetings. There's a great Indian AA group here in Portland, and the NARA program, the treatment program in Portland, and in Seattle, that Indian group there. I've gone to that one different times over the years. And it's like, I'm getting help for other people. I know I couldn't do this alone. And so for the young people, if we would just shape up, if we will get back to our culture, the kindness that our ancestors showed us, my grandmother again, my uncles. And again, even a lot of my uncles were still drinking, but when they were, sober and their minds clear, they were good people. They were just, I think in our DNA, there's something. I think, and that's another thing. I think our kids even recognize it. They're good to, when elders come in, when you bring elders into treatment, God, they're the right way. They stop talking. They're kind, and I find they're doing that with the horses. We have an elder to help us get started, and it works. So it's like you go on to Kendra, go on to Stanford. They got Shailene right here. Shailene Joseph just graduated from UCLA with a master's. And she's going all over the place with a group of young people, the indigenous 20-somethings. They're going all over the place, helping communities heal. So I've got a lot of faith. I've got total faith in the young people. It's us. We got to get it together. Knock off the drinking and drugs. And Jolene gave a great talk on lateral oppression, how we treat each other badly, Indian to other Indian. We got to knock that off. We got to work on our own healing as adults, grandparents, and the kids are going to be fine. I don't care what their diagnosis is. In fact, with this is 11 years now, I don't want to know what the diagnosis is. When staff or counselors or teachers bring kids into our workshops, they are just kids. And it's great if they have a counselor and a therapist working with them. That's a good tandem, to have a therapist and a horse wrangler. But it's us. We got the elders and the parents. Let's heal ourselves. The kids are going to be fine if they have us to be kind to them, show them the way. And I wanted to explain. I'm sorry if I get distracted. There's a couple of chickens here pecking me in the butt. They're okay. They're not dangerous. They just want, like little kids. They want attention. Anyway, I have faith in our kids. We just have to give them chances, give them opportunities, be kind to them. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So we actually had a question that came in, and I'll sort of open this up to anyone who wants to answer, and feel free to jump in. But the question is, when you counsel our adults, teens, and children, how do you incorporate traditions and values to them?
With children, just because I've been worked with children for so long, I usually try and bring in beading or stories or things like that to help them stay connected, because they're so active and so visceral that you've got to keep things that are are grounding to them. And so our drums, I bring in drums and they drum, and they may not know a song, but they like to drum. So I bring in a hand drum, or I bring in beating or looming or things like that. And I try and find stories about animals to tell them. And I remember some stories about Napi, and I tell them those stories. And those things are critical. But most importantly, I think I ask them what their knowledge is and what they want to know about who they are in their tribe and their tradition. And there's things that they haven't been asked, or they don't have access to it, because a lot of our youth who struggle have been disenfranchised from their families. And so they haven't had that relationship or that strong relationship. So I try and act like a funnel for that, to encourage them to go home and ask about this or ask about that, to find somebody within their tribe to work with them. When I work with children, I never work with children alone. I work with them and bring the adults in too. So, that's a part of the treatment plan. I can work with your child, but you've got to learn things too. And so that's critical, because that's how we are as Indian people. We don't take that child away and work with them. We've got to work with the family, because eventually that child goes back to the family. And so that's very native in practice. And I'm just so excited about Dr. Spence there doing equine therapy, which is so valuable to our youth. And he probably has a far better answer for this than I do, but that's what I do, Kendra.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. So with that question, is there anyone else who wants to add anything to that? So the question is, again, when you counsel our adults, teens, and children, how do you incorporate traditions and values to them? Cool. So we can definitely come back, move on to the next question. Avis, are you able to join us? All right, so the next question is actually for Verlene. So in thinking about strategies Native youth can use to care about their overall well-being, why is it important for there to be intergenerational conversations around this topic? What are ways that our elders can support Native youth more?
Excuse me, I think from what I've seen here in working with teenagers, a lot of them are lost. A lot of them don't know a whole lot of their culture, their language, their traditions and stuff. And a lot of times they say it's because it's not being taught to them by maybe their family members, their elders, whoever they may be in contact with. But I also tell them it's important too that, if they have questions about different things about their culture and traditions, that they need to go and ask these people about it. I was very fortunate to be raised by a father who was very, very traditional. His language, he participated in all the traditional activities that we did, and he would always share a lot of that with us, and what our roles were as women and as men, to my brothers and to my sisters and myself, and what we could and could not do in some of these ceremonies and things. I think that it's important that, that they do that, because, sometimes I hear people say, well, you're Navajo and you can't even speak Navajo, or you're Apache and you can't even speak Apache, or what kind of Indian are you, and if it's not being taught to them, then we can't blame anybody but ourselves right there. And, they need to identify with who they are.
Are these internal speakers? No. It's just the speakers on my
Avis,
laptop.
I think we can hear you now.
Okay. You can use that if they can hear me with that. No, I was just asking for verification, but sometimes Zoom will do this, and the way
Avis,
it's resolved is like I said. Because when we first
we can hear you.
Wait, hold on. They're saying they can hear you. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Davis, they can hear you now. Oh, okay. I have my, I apologize, everybody. My sound system is messed up. It's very, all I get is static when I'm listening, whether it's on the headset or my speakers. So, but can you hear?
Yes,
Hello?
I think the audio is coming through. Are you able to hear us as well?
To the moderator.
Yes, yeah. Are you able to hear us?
I cannot hear you.
Oh no.
It's
Okay.
breaking up. Is the question?
Yes, absolutely. I will actually give a little bit more space right now for Verlene to finish up, and then I'll drop in the chat the questions. Okay, thank you, Avis. I'm so excited that you're able to join us. But Verlene, for now, I will let you finish and kick it over to you again.
Okay, I lost my train of thought now. Can you kind of repeat the question again, what you were asking?
Yes, absolutely. No worries. So the question is, let me see. In thinking about strategies Native youth can use to care for their overall well-being, why is it important for there to be intergenerational conversations around this topic? What are ways that our elders can support Native youth more? And so you were talking about, you know, youth going to their family members or, you know, their elders to seek information about, you know, to gain knowledge from like cultural knowledge and language as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think too, you know, as parents, grandparents, we also need to be a lot more patient with our children and our teenagers now, because things are so much different now than it was 30, 40 years ago, you know, when most of us were growing up. And I always tell my kids that, I said, you know, my playground was my grandfather's sheep camp. You know, I didn't have a phone, I didn't have technology, didn't have any of this now. And you know, so just trying to be more patient with them is real important, because like we were saying, they can teach us a lot. You know, if we get stuck with our technology and stuff, we can turn to them and they'll know what to do. I mean, my 12-year-old granddaughter, you know, one day I couldn't get my phone to work, and she tells me, "Oh, grandma, all you have to do is this." And voila, it was working again. You know, there I was getting frustrated, trying to figure this out, and she knows it. So just exchanging those thoughts and ideas with each other's, and, you know, be patient and wanting to share this stuff with them, the culture and tradition. I mean, like right now, I'm teaching my grandsons how to speak Apache. I'm teaching them a word each day, you know, and it was kind of funny because my grandson, who's going to be 3 in March, the other day when I went to their house, he comes up to me and he tells me, "Grandma, grandma, grandma." And I said, "What?" And he was able to count all the way to 5 without me asking him to do it. You know, so I was like, "Whoa, yay, he's got it." You know, and they need to know that. They need to know where they come from. They need to know that, you know, I know a lot of tribes are losing their language because it's not being taught. It's not being spoken in the home, and it's not being taught, you know, to them. And that's something I think that's real important, because our language is what identifies us as Native people.
Thank you for that, Verlene. Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm sort of on my own journey with that, with, you know, learning more of my language and my culture. And absolutely, it's kind of, you know, getting even that knowledge from your elders in that way is so powerful. You know, even thinking about my own journey and how my grandparents had given those things to me, gifted those, is, you know, just so impactful. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So I don't see Avis anymore, so she might jump back on with us. But next question, I will go to Robbie. So these conversations about mental health and caring for community and youth well-being are really often difficult and sometimes tricky to start, to even have in a community setting. However, oftentimes these are a result of kind of Western dynamics that have infiltrated our communities. Do you have any advice for communities overall who are struggling to have these conversations and give space to Native youth to even talk about their holistic well-being? How can we create healthier and more mindful communities for the future?
Yeah, I can talk to that. I guess our number one goal in family strength here at Yellow Hawk Clinic is building connections with our community. We've taken kids fishing, hiking, horseback riding. We took about 16 kids horseback riding in Laos a couple of years ago, and just treating them like they're us, giving them the respect that we want, them to have. And I think a lot of the youth want somebody to recognize them. They want to be heard. They want to be, having a good time and not be scolded to say, hey, you don't do that or don't do this. And, I'm learning to laugh with them, like yesterday, youth texted me and said, hey, are we going to go do something or are we just going to chop it up? And I don't know what chop it up means. So we looked it up on the internet. I guess it means just talking, I guess. And, I just really appreciate everything I learned from our kids. And I think our communities understand that we have a lot to learn from our kids, our youth. And I think that if you don't connect with them or even try, they're already like, they're going to push you away. And I worked with youth that told me that, I'll give you a few months and you're going to be out of my life. And, and they push and they know how to get you out of their life. But here's a year and a half later, we're still talking and we're still hanging out and they still know how to push my buttons. But at the same time, I don't let them have the what they're trying to get out of me. I just kind of like, you know what? I mean, sometimes I have to back up and say, remember when you were 15, how you were like, and I guess that's kind of the theme I keep hearing is that, we were all that aged at one time in our life, whether what stage it was, unless somebody's, because I'm 51 and, I obviously will try to treat an elder better than my regular community, because that's kind of what I've been taught. And, one of the cool things, I went to an elder about 5 years ago and we were talking about Wild Horse and he listened to I went to him for advice and it seemed like 5 minutes, but it was only like 30 seconds. And he said, let me think about what you said. I want to give you a proper response. And I always remember, I always tell that in class to kids. And I always tell them that, if we had people listening to us like that and not thinking about their answer as you're talking, and it's just building connections. Like I said, I love it when when that light comes on, when that youth is like, I'm in, and that's a good feeling. So I think that we just need to step up, like John said, and be there for them.
Thank you for that, Robbie. Wow, being in this space and hearing y'all's responses is just, I feel so lucky and so blessed to be here with y'all. So we're nearing the top of the hour, and to sort of wrap up the conversation here. This is a question for all of you, but what do you want Native youth to love about themselves? What is something you want instilled in your grandchildren, for example, as they navigate the world? So first, I will go back to Verlene.
Okay, so what I would want them to do is to always to be proud of who they are, to always take pride in their culture, to always to be proud of where they come from. And, it's not the clothes or the material things in life that make us who we are, but what we have in our heart. what we carry, carrying that love and respect for the people that we come in contact with each day. Because those are the things that people are going to remember you by when it's your time to leave this earth. They're going to remember you by that. They're not going to remember you having the biggest house or the fanciest car or the most horses, cows, whatever it may be. They're going to remember the type of person you were and the legacy you left behind. And I see that, with my late dad. As I mentioned, my dad was a very kind and respectful man in our community and was always willing to help others. And that's what he was remembered for, that he was always willing to give to others and not asking for anything in return at all. And that was just his way of being the person that he needed to be. He grew up with very little, very, very little. And, he went to boarding school. And for him, I know there's always a lot of negative things said about boarding school and everything, but boarding school gave him the opportunity to finish school. It gave him clothes on his back, food to eat, because my grandmother couldn't provide any of that, and my grandfather couldn't either. But he used all that in a more positive way to where he finished school, he joined the military, he's a veteran of the Marine Corps, and he was very proud of the things that he was able to do. And these young kids, I can tell them, is just to always be proud of who you are and who you come from. And you make that choice every single day, when you wake up. Do I want to be happy, or am I going to be mad? I'm sad. What am I going to carry in my heart today for others? And that's just one thing I can tell them, to always live your life to its fullest each day, because we know tomorrow is never promised for any of us.
Thank you, Verlene. Wow, that was incredible. So thank you. I guess next I will go to Dr. Kipp.
I think I want youth to know that when times get rough, and they will get rough, when times get dark, and they will get dark, there's someone there for you. And whether it be an auntie, a grandma, an uncle, there's somebody there. And sometimes our aunties and our grandmas and our uncle aren't even in our family, but they're outside of our circle. But there's someone there for you. And I would like them to remember that they are here because we are special. They are here because our ancestors survived and made sure that this land was there for them. So our connection to land is critical and placed. And they are here because they come from a long line of people who have survived trauma, of people who have overcome adversity, of the first in their ever family to graduate, those kinds of things. And so when they feel like giving up, and we all do, remember you have an auntie, a grandma, an uncle, somewhere out there who is willing to raise out their hand for you and to help you. You're never alone. You're never alone. Plus we have Creator to always guide us. And that's a very special gift. It's not about religion. It's not about anything else, but our physical and our emotional and our spiritual connection to something that makes us believe that we're here for a greater good. And that's what I would like them to know. There's always somebody for you.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. Yes, our support systems and where we get support and love from is ever expanding. And I truly hope that all Native youth out there who are watching definitely take that to heart, because I know I definitely am, and I definitely see you as an auntie to me, Dr. Kipp. So thank you. So next I will go to Robbie.
Hello again. I was just telling my coworkers sitting on the side over here, they stole my answer, but I guess it can just, one of the things we always talk about in native stand when we're working with the youth, and we've got an opportunity that would have been the 4th year in a row. We would have got all freshmen, and it's nice to get them ready for high school. And one of the things we always talk about, because we become really close when we connect as a group, and one of the things we always talk about is love. And why don't we accept love in our life? Why is it so hard? Why can't, and I guess my grandson, I was thinking about him when you guys talk about grandsons. He's 13, and he always says he loves me, and it's really nice to hear, because I know we don't hang out as much as we should, and that's one of the things I always tell people I'm most proud of my 4 kids that I raised, was that every time we see each other, when we say goodbye, we always say we love you, and and I know not a lot of kids get that, and sometimes when they dig deep and they're vulnerable in the class, and they'll talk about, like I had a student one day tell us that it was like 5 years ago, I think, and he was telling us that he got a pair of socks for Christmas, and he says it would have meant a lot more if they would have at least wrapped it. And I remember all the shock factor, and all the kids were just like blown away, and and we all kind of put our money together and got him a gift card for Christmas, and and I could tell it moved him, and I could tell that it was difficult for him to understand that people care about him. And what I want youth to know is people care about you. They really do. And find that one person or 2 people. I have a young lady that's in her 30s that teaches right now at Nick Yahweh, and she'll send me a text just out of the blue, checking on you, love you. And it means a lot, and do that, youth. Do that for your moms and dads and aunties and uncles or whoever you're in contact with. It'll make their day. And there's just a lot of lessons behind that. There's just a lot of connections and a lot of living and true living that youth, sometimes I think they want to be cool, and which is nice, I guess. I was one of them too. But accept the love.
Thank you, Robbie. Yes, absolutely. I love that message, just like accepting love and also giving it, and even, just sharing gratitude, with the people in your life that you're thankful for, really does go a long way. So thank you so much for sharing that. So next I will go to John Spence. I also see that Avis is here as well, connecting to audio, but yes, John.
Oh gosh, I don't know exactly what to say, because I know I just flashing on all the kids at Shemawa and kids in a group home in Fort Belknap I worked with, and it's like all these kids that had no one. Their folks are out drinking, or they just weren't there. And so the need for Indian foster parents is still huge. The need for us to shape up and, be better adults and role models. But for the kids, I mean, this really made sense to me when I heard it years ago from Caroline Cruz at Warm Springs. She's the tribal health director there. Years ago, I remember she said, all the 9 tribes in Oregon have been getting together for 21 years now, since March of '99, every quarter, faithfully, the prevention and treatment folks, but even more the prevention folks. And Caroline just taught us many years ago, we need to provide opportunities, skills, and recognition. Those are the 3 things that kids need. And I love that, because that's what we knew instinctively at the group home back in 1981 at Fort Belknap. And we provided that opportunity, skills, and recognition, each part a kid needs. So a kid in a healthy environment, he gets that from his parents. And if he doesn't have parents, if he has, good foster parents, or he's staying with an aunt or uncle or grandparents, if he gets that, he'll be okay. That's what our grandmother gave us, opportunity, skills, and recognition. And maybe she couldn't give a whole lot in terms of the opportunities, but it was her strength and her love. And I wish Avis could be on here to say more about that. Avis, I don't want to say you're older than me, Avis, but she could remember more than, but anyway, I don't want to leave it up to the kids. It's us that have to give it to these kids. You know, they've got all this spontaneity, all this love to give. If we will just be healthy, heal ourselves up, because they've got it. They're just full of love, spontaneity. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, Avis, are you able to, is your audio coming through?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, yay.
Listen, I had to get another headset. I had to completely reinstall Zoom.
Oh my gosh, yes,
So
like no worries. We would love to also have you on another Elder Power Hour, because we are unfortunately closing out, but would you be able to you know, give us some wisdom here? The question is, what do you want Native youth to love about themselves? What is something you want instilled in your grandchildren as they navigate the world?
well, to really get to know yourself. And I mean, that sounds so easy, but in this time when we're so restricted, it's a good opportunity to try to do that. And one way is through meditation, and that sounds cliche too, but we have to at some point make a connection with the universe, with the Mother Earth, with everything. I'm thinking of I'm gonna borrow a phrase from my friend Theda Newbreast. She's always talking about old Indian tricks. Well, there was an old Indian trick. It's not a trick, but it was something that we did. When a baby was born, they took the umbilical cord after it dried, and they beaded a beautiful pouch for that. And different tribes did different things with it. One of the things that was done was you would bury that in some safe place, maybe on your land, wherever you are, where you're born. Bury that, and that's your real connection with the Mother Earth, because that is your umbilical cord, and she is our mother. And that was a very, very deep connection, and it was done ceremonially. And I want to offer you a new Indian trick based on that old one, is that if you meditate in the morning first thing right before you pray, and if you will put your hand on your belly button, and if you will visualize that umbilical cord, and if you will send it very deep, 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 very deep into the Mother Earth, through the water, through the crust, through the rock, even way deep into the Mother Earth, to hang just above the fire in the core, in the center of the Mother Earth. And I always hang some beautiful, I put a diamond and a ruby and an emerald and a lapis. I hang some beautiful stones on that and send that deep into the Mother Earth. So you are grounded to the Mother. And then put your hand on your belly button again and visualize that this goes up your spine, through your fontanelle, up, way, way, way up to maybe the star system that you came from. Because our people talk about the Star Nation and where our home is there, different tribes. There on through that original home to the Creator, to the Prime Creator, Wakantanka, whatever you call that Creator. So you are grounded to heaven and to earth, and you are between that, and you are right there. And then you can begin to meditate after you're grounded. And people meditate in different ways, and there's no great secret. Just be with yourself. Notice your thoughts as they come and go, and realize that most of that is not even you. Our early childhood development people tell us that from before conception and on up to age 7, everything we're programmed. Our unconscious is programmed by all that you have around you. Our unconscious does not judge. It's like a computer. It just stores everything. And so all that is there, and it may be good and it may not be good. And I know growing up Native, you get a lot of messages from the environment. I know growing up in Montana, it was one of the most racist places and still is. But if I didn't have my grandma telling me, Avis, you are so smart. Avis, you are so good. Avis, you're so smart. You know, you can do anything. And, you know, I believed her. And so when I went to school, and it was difficult because we lived on the res, but we had to go to school across the river in Harlem. And Harlem is a small town. And at the time when we went to grade school there was maybe 3% Native, and all the rest were non-Native kids. And I do not exaggerate when I say that going to school every day, I ran the gamut. You had non-Native kids stoning you. You had them sticking their dogs on you. The messages you got from the non-Native people in town, we were dirty, that N-word, you know what that is. But we were prairie niggers. So it was, and then that was from the parents and the children in that town. But if I didn't have my grandma every day telling me, Avis, you're so good. Avis, you're so smart. Avis, you can do anything. You know, she was my lifeline. She was my umbilical cord to everything else. So if we didn't have her doing that, I don't know what would have happened, because I'm sure John already told you that when my mom passed away, when our mother passed away, we were little. And grandma was already up there in age, but she took us on. And our dear uncle, we call him Unksy, our mother's brother. And this was towards the end of World War II. And when he came back, he had suffered a lot of trauma, which probably showed up later. But when he came home, we were so happy to have him home. And he used to take us fishing. He'd take us hiking. He'd take us everywhere. I remember one time we went up into the canyon in the rock, you know, at Fort Belknap. We have a canyon, the Little Rocky Mountains. He would take us up there fishing. I remember one time when he caught 99 fish. And like, you know, the uncles, the cousins, everybody fished, everybody hunted. So we didn't want for anything. But getting back to the original question, getting to know yourself. And there's many, many ways to do that. But one way, which we really can take advantage right now, is spending a lot of time alone with yourself. Not always on this, not always on this, or in this format we're in, because we rely on that so much. And this seems to be the connection to the world for young people now, for many of us. But we need to get that connection with ourselves, with our intuition, and begin to really, really trust that. Because that's the most reliable thing, our intuition. It's a direct line, really, to the Creator when we clear everything out of the way and we start taking care of some of those childhood and early messages that were not good, and we begin to change those. And one of the most powerful ways of changing those, of course, is ceremony, because we're touching all levels. We're touching the unconscious, the subconscious, the conscious, the collective unconscious, all consciousness. So in ceremony, there are no barriers, there are no curtains between all of those realities. And so we're able to really, really get in touch with the deepest part of ourselves, as well as the higher part of ourselves that some might call the superconscious, or just our higher self, and to get in touch with the universe. So I think it's a great opportunity right now just to be able to meditate to really get in touch with yourself and not be afraid of the things that you see or feel. The things, just let everything pass by. You can keep it or you can let it go. Everything that you think is not you, most of that, 90% of that, is programming from those early years when you didn't have a choice. You didn't have a choice about what came your way. As an adult, we have a choice now with our consciousness. We can choose. We can choose what to believe, what to keep, what to work with. But when you're a little child, you just take all of that in. And as you get, when you become older and become aware, we need to realize that that's not me. All of that unconscious programming there. And I have a choice now about what I believe and how I do it. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Avis. Oh my gosh, that was such a beautiful and really moving way to close us out here. You know, I really wish that we could, you know, continue this conversation further. And I'm sure that we will with an additional power hour focusing on the elders and their words of encouragement. But thank you for joining us for this incredible conversation, and a huge an immense gratitude to all of the panelists who joined us today. You know, and out there, remember to let us know how you practice self-love and self-care by submitting to our Celebrating Self-Love call for submissions. So just again, thank you to all of our panelists. You all shared some really powerful and moving seeds of wisdom with us today. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow when we launch our Native Youth Our Medicine resource toolkit.
Thank you. Bye everybody.
Hey, brother
Bye-bye.
man.